We're calling the business meeting back into session, having completed the executive session. And we will follow the agenda, which is to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Never do it too much. So, Ms. Arruda, would you lead, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Emergency evacuation procedures. In case of an emergency, follow the exit signs, leave quickly. No smoking anywhere on the campus, so please remember that. And that brings us to board consent agenda, which the first two items on that are to approve minutes of the last two meetings. And since we have two new board members who weren't present at those meetings, I'm going to pull that out, and we'll ask for approval of C1 and C2 so that Ms. Ancona and Ms. Felice can abstain since they weren't present.
Mrs. I'm going to also abstain.
Because you missed
Yeah.
both of those or just one?
Just one.
All right, then I'll do them
Yeah.
separately.
I missed the 18th, so.
Okay, you keep yourselves straight. So
So-
I'm going to go.
Then that means it's not a majority.
You're not gonna have a part, that's why we're saying it to you.
Oh,
You
wait
might
a
wanna
minute.
do it C1
One,
and
two,
then C2.
three.
Did you both miss the same meeting?
No,
No.
you
No.
were on different meetings,
No, that's why I'm
so
saying
we
you might
have
wanna do
four.
C1 and then C2.
Right, if we do it separately,
Separate.
we'll have
Yeah.
enough, we'll have 4 votes to approve each one. So for item C1, which are the minutes of the June 10th meeting, and just to clarify, is that the meeting where Ms. Arruda was present? And Mr. Trent, you were not present?
I think I was present that one.
You were
It
present?
was the one when you weren't there. I was only there for the first vote. And then I had to go back to
Oh, it
work.
was the same meeting.
Yeah.
All right, so for this meeting, both of you were
Yeah,
present?
I was present.
So you both did.
Okay, so,
The minutes, do you have
You
to
don't
have
have
it
to
or-
abstain. You don't have to abstain, correct? Or you don't have to abstain if you weren't at the meeting. Correct? John has told us in the past, you don't have to. The only time you should abstain is if you have a personal benefit to a.
Did you view the meeting?
I did watch
I
the
would say if
meeting.
you viewed the meeting and have a personal knowledge of the contents of the meeting, then you can certainly vote as to the minutes.
Be that a poll?
but let's just, if we focus on this meeting, which is C1, the minutes of the June 10th meeting, 5 of us at the table today were present at that meeting. So we've got enough people to take care of the minutes. So do we have a motion to approve? We have Mr. Parker and a second by Mr. Trent. Any further discussion on that one? Okay, all in favor. I have 5 people approving the minutes of C1. And any votes against? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
2 abstentions. Okay, now we'll go to item C2. This is minutes of the June 18 meeting. And that's the one where both Cameron, Trent, and
I'll vote to approve because I did attend the meeting,
you attended.
not the whole meeting.
Okay. All right. So, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 18 meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Trent made the motion and a second by Mr. Parker. Questions or discussion?
The minutes reflect that everyone
One was here, that's exactly what I'm looking at right now.
So there might be a need to amend the minutes if Ms. Arruda indeed knows she wasn't at that meeting. But it is
No, was that the 26th meeting?
June 18th.
No, it was on the 26th, the
It was
18th I
the
was not
18th.
at.
It says Clyde wasn't here.
It says Clyde, but maybe I wasn't at the 10th meeting? We're having too many meetings if we can't
It was the
figure
day
out.
of the election. It was the day, wasn't it the day,
26 was the, after the.
it was the day before the election?
You weren't there, Melissa?
No, it was the 16th was the day of the election. I mean, the 18th was the day of the election. The counting was done on the 16th.
Yeah.
We met, the election, certification of election
Right.
was the 18th.
We had that added.
Which the only
right.
person I thought wasn't there was Clark. You were here for that.
No, that was the day you cleaned out the classroom.
Maybe it wasn't the 10th, maybe, I'm looking at the minutes right now.
It was the
Yeah.
18th.
I mean, either way, we viewed them, so we're fine.
Okay, June
We're fine.
18, it was a Zoom meeting.
They were all Zoom meetings.
I know, but I'm just trying to refresh memories of anybody.
That was your meeting to accept the budget.
That was the short, yeah, that was the
That was a short meeting, yes, yes, I was at that meeting, it was the 10th,
You
that
were
was not
there,
out.
everybody was there.
It's
Okay, so that's June 18.
But you're saying if you viewed the meeting, you can vote on it?
Yeah, and I think, Chris is right in that you can certainly vote on it, abstention is not required, but if you, vote on it because you can attend the meeting, that's perfectly acceptable.
I feel more comfortable.
If you don't need it for the majority, then I'll abstain.
We're good anyway.
Yeah, you're good.
We have a
All right.
motion and we had a second. And we've had discussion. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes of the June 18 meeting, those who can vote, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor.
Oh, no.
Oh, 5 in
18, yes.
favor. Any opposition? None. Any abstention? 2. Okay, so that's approved. Next, we have item C3, which is approval of the treasurer's report for May. A motion to approve that, please. Who wants to make that motion? Mr. Trent, second. Ms. Aruda, discussion or questions? All in favor? We have unanimous approval, thank you. The next is item C.
Are we gonna do them all individual, or are we gonna do them in
Well,
groups?
I think we can now do C4 through 7.
Six.
C4 through C6. Is there a motion to approve items C4 through C6? Ms. Aruda, a second. Mr. Trent, any discussion or questions? All in favor? Again, unanimous approval.
Just Madam President.
Yes.
On one of the items that we approved was the training for the new trustees. So the clerk's office would facilitate the registration?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause it'll be here before we know it. Thank you.
Okay, you know, did we get item, yeah, we got item C1 through C6. It was a little convoluted, but we got there. All right, we're not doing public commentary because we're still operating under some of the executive order and not having the room opened to physical presence of the public. But in the past, we had invited any of our virtual audience, if they had questions or comments,
Yeah.
to submit those ahead of time.
So we'll do a reminder again. However, the executive order, I believe, closes July 6th. However, the governor is pretty much last minute with the executive orders. So on July 7th, we make another extension. If not, public can come back, I think. So it'll be up to the board how you want to handle that. If we do not have public, I would put a reminder out that questions could be submitted we could handle like we did the first couple of meetings.
Well, whether or not the public is able to
Mhm.
physically
Right,
be
right.
present with our
That's what I
meeting,
meant.
Right.
the public always can direct concerns through the superintendent or through one of the building principal or whoever would be the appropriate administrator in charge. And I think that would be something we want to continue even when we're freed from the restrictions and we can have people back.
To that note, if we do start to have public entering again, we, I think, need to think about the environment that we're in, whether we want to move them maybe to the middle school for a little while where we can separate, because I don't know how
That's
if
a-
the
that's a-
public
that's a
would
good
want to
point.
come in.
Mhm.
We are in a small room, and since we will be having more people in, so it might be something that we want to discuss once that second, I would say we can even wait a little while until we find out whether he extends.
Well, when we got plenty of time. The next meeting is the 22nd.
Right.
So he's got to extend by the 7th, I would guess.
Yeah, 12:59 on the 6th.
Yeah, but, good idea, and it has been noted. We do go to public, we go to a bigger venue.
Okay. So now we have communications and announcements.
Yes,
And
and I
turn that over to
believe-
you.
I believe that is me, and I would like to start, before I forget, to point to the signs that are in front of the board table for the board and for the public, obviously. You may recall, pre-COVID, we did a no idle free zone campaign where each of our buildings, students participated in drafting pictures to include on the sign. And our last meeting, I believe that we were in this room pre-COVID, we voted, and we selected winners of that. Letters did, I think, go out yesterday to congratulate those folks. Those signs are fabricated now in front of us. And when we do come back, we will do some type of a unveiling. We obviously need to get a couple more signs. These are, we only have one sign made per building, but we will need more. We're currently communicating with the principals in terms of how many and where in that regard. But I'm pretty happy with the way they came out. They look pretty sharp, and they're not, they're not cardboard, they're metal, so they're going to last. So congratulations to all those students that participated, and thanks to the board for moving forward on the initiative.
And if you go back a little further in your recitation of the history, the idea was presented in writing by parents of, I believe it was a Frank P. Long
Yes.
student.
Yes, I wish I remembered the name.
And it was a good idea. It was discussed by the board, and the superintendent then went further with it and had the contest for the students in each building to put in their prototype. And then we selected what we thought would be the best representation per building. So it's a good example of having community involvement of things that can be good ideas and then be acted on. And had COVID not interfered, it would have all taken place, but it'll get done.
It would have been posted.
Okay.
Okay, moving along, our moving up parades all went very well. Seeing the smiling faces on the students and the families as they arrived at the new schools were evidence of that. I wasn't at the initial schools. I went to the schools where the kids were showing up, along with the rest of the administration, and people were just simply excited in terms of the parades that we were able to put together. So I want to thank the principals, obviously, for coordinating it, and the faculty and staff who were there and decorated and made it special for the students, because it really was special. And even by the time they got to the other school, they were still happy and thrilled. So I want to thank everyone that participated in that. Graduation, as you all know, we held it last week, and in my view and the view of many, it was a huge success, starting with the fanfare car parade in the village through Belport, And then after a brief shower, I know you all recall the double rainbow that we had on the field, and then ending with fireworks by Grucci. The entire event was simply spectacular, and will no doubt be a graduation ceremony that this group and others that witnessed it will never forget. We've already heard requests for including and the projection screen, and so we'll certainly look at all of those items as we move forward, because we are certainly not looking to downplay a graduation, and it'll be tough to outdo the one we just did, in my view. So thanks to Mr. Hogan and his administrative team who really put it all together. The graduation was really special for the graduates, the families, and certainly the learning community. And before I go on into school reopening, I didn't know if board members wanted to comment on the graduation that were there.
Mr. Puccini?
Yeah, I want to capitalize on what Dr. Gianni said. I think it was very well received in the community, and I have a number of high school seniors who are now graduates who live in my neighborhood, and they were just ecstatic. The families really were, and you know, a lot of the comments were, wow, it was better than it would have been in the normal times, which I think is nice. So hats off to Mr. Hogan and his team for really putting on. And you know what, and to the facilities team, the grounds, because it was a bigger undertaking. I'm sure they're happy they didn't have to set up all those chairs. But you know, I was a little involved in helping coordinate the delivery of the screen and everything else, and there was a lot of moving parts. And I also think it's a good time to reflect on, you know, leading up to this. There's always so much concern way before anything has to be decided as to what's going to be decided. And it was left in the hands of people who have guided these students for 4 years in the high school, and they hit it out of the park. You know, so sometimes it's best if we just sit back and wait for things to be decided before suggestions are made, and what are we gonna do? And there was a lot of it. And I know the board, there's a lot of emotion got into it. Why aren't we doing this? And what are we doing? And we should do this. Well, sometimes we just gotta sit back as a community and let the people who are in charge of doing it, because they really did hit it out of the park. And on top of that, you know, the administration did their bus tour the week before, which was awesome. And again, I have a high school senior next door, so I got to see the bus come through, and it was just, and they were out there late, because those things never go on schedule at all. And I know some of us participated in the parade with the teachers as well. So it's really nice to see everything that was done. So
I'd like to add to your observation, and that is, it turned out that some of the comments, including from some of the younger students who will be graduating in the next few years, have said they want exactly what happened this year as opposed to the one last year. And I said that gives us an opportunity to reevaluate how we do things. And even though the way we've done things in the past have been wonderful and uplifting, and it's had pomp and circumstance and been well received, isn't it interesting that when we had to make a change was made, and it was so well received and with such enthusiasm. And if we can keep that in mind, it can maybe make some of us a little more comfortable about the fact that we don't have control over everything that's going to happen in the future. And that, like you said, that we've got a lot of people in the district who are professional, who know the students, who've got a good heads on their shoulders with regard to getting things organized. And they're to be commended for what they did. So, yes.
And I would like to say that you guys didn't have the pleasure of being on Main Street, you know, at the Four Corners, but Cheryl and I were there. And the community spirit in this is what makes South Country South Country. And this is why I ran for the board, and this is why I chose to buy a house here. The amount of people that showed up and cheered these seniors on, and the way the seniors reacted, they loved it. It was so special, and I really do hope this is a tradition that can continue. But it was amazing.
And we can always improve on things too, and like Dr. Chiani earlier had said, you know, there were an awful lot of cars, and there's a lot of roads throughout our school district. Maybe we should expand it a bit. And, you know, if planning is done next year, whoever's doing it, you can remember to talk to them about that and, you
And
know.
hopefully we can participate in the parade
Yeah,
as well.
that'd be nice.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys could be
One
the
other thing
float.
I did forget at the end, I do think a lot of credit needs to go to student council and our former ex officio board member, Carly Dialosa, because student council really worked hard leading up to this. They stuffed all those, I know they had that fundraiser for all of the decorations, and I know Ellen Hoffman obviously is really a big part of that, and I think sometimes we forget how much the kids put into this, so,
And the grade level advisors as well.
yeah.
But it was about them, and they're the ones that were involved. That was what
What they
really
wanted.
made special to me, was that this was their graduation, and they really created it the way that they wanted it, and they knocked it out of the park, as we said. They really did. I want to thank the community for coming out. I did get to run a little bit late, so I got to see a little bit of it. I wasn't intentionally late, but that was a perk for me. The amount of community that came out to support our seniors was amazing. So a big shout out to the community for coming out. It really, I think, made it their day. And seeing it all over social media, the excitement from the community all over social media. It was just amazing, it really was. I also, just like Chris had said, we did do some delivery of some signs, and that, just watching the seniors come out and watching their teachers, it was very special. So whether it was the administration, the staff, the community, you really created an amazing opportunity for the children. So thank you.
Okay, I'm not done.
I'm just saying,
I
thanks
just
for bringing
thought-
that up, because that brings smiles to our faces, so. Go ahead.
Okay, my next item is school reopening update. At this point, we have not received any guidance from the state regarding the reopening of schools in September. I do believe we will be back in our buildings in one form or another come September, however, whether it be in person or a hybrid model of a combination of in-person and remote learning. Face coverings have been purchased already by the district for all employees. In fact, we are, obviously, you've seen the red ones. We are also ordering blue ones to give employees two, so they know which ones are clean when they're wearing them, right? Whether we'll go red day or blue day, that I don't know. We are also considering the use of face shields for confined area situations where social distancing is difficult. That may be social workers and psychologists or guidance counselors. We are currently looking at our facilities for ways to reduce density and provide for social distancing requirements. Classrooms will need to be rearranged to address social distancing. We're considering one-way hallways, staggered release times, and other ways to reduce density in our common areas. On Tuesday, administration will be reviewing the results from our needs assessment survey that we put out for a week. If you recall, we surveyed students, faculty, staff, and parents. That data will help us to determine subcommittees that will be formed for moving forward. So the board knows each of the board's advisory committees will be involved in the reopening plans, beginning with their August meeting, if not sooner. And that, of course, will depend upon guidance from the state, along with us taking a look at that needs assessment survey. There will also be two committees, one elementary and one secondary, made up of administration, faculty, and staff. I promised the staff that they would be included in this, and they certainly will be. I don't know if the board knows, but throughout the closure, I met with the staff, faculty district-wide on Fridays. With one of the benefits of Zoom, you can get everybody together pretty quickly and easily. And we had about an average of 283 people on Zoom at these district-wide faculty meetings. And I think the faculty was pretty appreciative of the updates that they got at those meetings. And I'll certainly be continuing to do those because, quite honestly, it's pretty easy to do. And I also promised the faculty that sometime during the summer, when we have some more information, that I will do it again and and I'm sure that they would attend. But those secondary and elementary meetings, I think, are going to look at more building operational items. One of the beauties of this shutdown is it caused us all to work as a team in different areas, particularly on grade level. The faculty was very thankful for that, and I want to continue that. And it also allowed us to be consistent in what we were doing, building to building. So we're going to build on that as well. So those two committees, faculty and staff and administration, will look at operational items. And once we've reviewed the survey results and hopefully get some guidance from the state and can determine the what and who's, I plan on taking those and divvying them up among the advisory committees, right? So obviously, teaching and learning is going to be dealing with a lot of the needs assessment stuff because a lot of it had to do with remote learning and how that worked. Health and safety will be dealing with a lot of the health and safety stuff with regard to masks and the close proximities, as well as social distancing, and facilities will also be involved in that. So once we know the what and who's, we're going to divvy it up so we all understand who's going to do what. And the beauty of our board advisory committees, it'll all be overseen by the board and members will be on there. And I see strategic planning as coordinating all of that. So that's where we are right now. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information for the board. As a reminder, next week, the 6th, we're opening up face-to-face instruction for our extended school year program at the middle school. I was there this morning looking at the classrooms. Fortunately, you only, in the extended school year program, we're only going to have a few kids in each class, so social distancing isn't going to be as much of an issue. The governor's executive order capped classes for those programs at 10. We had 12 and anticipated splitting the class at first, but then after we surveyed parents on whether they would come, it was interesting. We got a mixed bag in terms of some parents weren't comfortable with sending their kids yet. Some parents were comfortable sending the kids but not getting on the bus. And I anticipate we're going to have the same concerns next school year if and when we come back in September. Faculty all had no problem coming back in the extended school year program. Some of our TAs had concerns, but sometimes our TAs are caring for older adults at home, and those are the type of issues that we were dealing with. So that's all I have for now. I think the extended school year program is going to be kind of a trial in terms of how that goes, but we'll see. Connecticut and Jersey have comprehensive documents out right now for their school, which I have and which administration has, and I've asked them to take a look and review, thinking we're going to be behind the same eight ball with regard to what we have to do. And I thought for sure we'd see something today because the state had promised we'd know in June. Obviously, June's over, so I thought we'd hear something today, but we didn't.
It's kind of interesting. Yesterday, if you didn't see it, the American Academy of Pediatrics issued a statement saying kids need to be in school.
Yeah,
Full-time.
and did they also say 3 feet?
You know what? I read the article this morning. I pulled it up now. It doesn't really give those, but it talks about how the threat of illness, social, emotional, and things like that. There's greater risk to not being in school than being in school, and especially since they cite in here that children are less affected with COVID and less likely to spread it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting because that's kind of conflicts with what we're hearing from politicians and CDC, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Well, I think Dr. Fauci's last remarks were the kids need to get back to school too. I don't remember the 3 items. I know one of them is obviously social distancing, another is ventilation, and there was a third. I don't know if anybody saw him speak. I don't just recall what it was.
Probably hand washing and
Yeah, I think
things
that's
like
what it
that.
was, hygiene, yes, yeah.
Snap our fingers.
Are we going to
increase the number of social workers for the upcoming school year?
No, there were no plans of doing that. I believe that, number one, we, for our district, compared to other size districts, our support staff, we have a nice size support staff, and I think our support staff is very capable of handling the issues that we have and may have. However, when we do open up, and if we do see a need, an increased need, then that's something we'll look at and speak to the board about. But currently, there is no plan to.
Do we know offhand how many, if any, of our students fell through the cracks?
We know that kids from time to time were disconnected. We know that at one time everyone was connected, but the consistency of it wasn't there. And I know you know that we did those connections with the faculty, communicated to the principal, and we actually sent our responders to the houses, knocking on doors, to find out what and why. And I know I shared with the board, some parents were struggling getting their kids to.
It wasn't easy.
I have a great kid and it wasn't easy.
And it wasn't the, the device or the internet connection problem, it was they didn't want to do it, and the parents were struggling. But yes, we have the numbers, but they were fluid, they were going like this, because if you remember, we were doing it weekly. I mean, I got a spreadsheet from the principals every Thursday with regard, unconnected. Spreadsheet went to responders started knocking on doors. We were relentless with making sure kids were connected.
Do we have any data on how the fourth quarter went with the students? Was it consistent with the rest of the quarters?
I haven't looked at it, certainly we have the data,
Yeah.
but I have not looked at it yet. That just closed out last week, so.
Right, okay.
I would bet it was better. I mean, grades were rounded up, I mean.
Well, listen, it shouldn't have gone down.
Well,
because that was
if a
the
kid was
protocol.
having social emotional issues
Sure.
or, or a disconnect with their equipment, then you would have seen a decrease. And I hope the teachers would have, taken that into consideration. And I hope that I don't see a decline on kids that weren't, that it wasn't consistent with how they normally behave. But I would like to see that, to see.
Well, we were clear with the grading protocols with the elementary, that number one, no student would be, his grade would be reduced as a result of this. And only grades could be improved as a result of the work they did. At the secondary level, and I'm sure you're aware, because you have young students at secondary, we established those rubrics. And also, they couldn't be dropped, but everything got rounded up. There were four benchmarks. So kids should have done well unless they simply did nothing at the second. Yeah, that's right.
I know that you said you were gonna be looking at the data from the surveys. Do you know how many you received back from the students? And the reason I ask is only because they were released on the Monday after this quarter closed for them, so I'm just curious to know how many of the children actually went
I
on.
thought we opened that up on Friday. I remember we put
They
it
went out
in
Monday.
Google, we put them in Google Classrooms on that Thursday or Friday. Okay.
And that's my the only reason I'm asking, so hopefully we can.
I believe, I do know the numbers, I don't know them off the top of my head, we just briefly talked about it Tuesday. The numbers were low all across the board, not only students, but parents and also faculty.
And then the second portion of it, and I know that we did talk about this earlier, is ensuring that when we do return to school, that we look at those lessons for socialization, mental health, those types of lessons that may not follow the curriculum pacing guide, so to speak, but really meet the needs of the pandemic and how it's affected our students. So returning back and kind of slowing it down just to not only catch up academically, but to really re-engage the children socially and emotionally with each other.
So I'll tell you now what I told the faculty, which I'll be telling you soon as we begin to develop our board priorities. Going into the school year, I told the faculty that I am going to be asking the board to include 3 priorities in their priority development. First one is equity in education, and that goes along a lot of lines, whether it's implicit bias or restorative justice, but I think we really have a need to do that. We began that work with the administration last year with a plan to bring faculty and staff into the fold this year. That'll be extended to faculty, staff, and students, because I believe the students should be part of that discussion as well, particularly considering what has happened in the country just recently. The second item is technology and remote learning. That's something, it's another priority the board we've had, but I think we really need to look at that with regard to making sure we attempt to get a device in every kid's hand, and also the connectivity of that. The needs assessment is going to be real helpful for that, because it asks those type of questions on whether or not you had a device, you had a connection, what device you used, were you sharing it, and we'll be able to ascertain those items from that. And then the last one that I'll be asking the board to look at is the social emotional piece. And it's not only social emotional piece for the students, but I also think for the faculty and staff, because everybody went through this. So when we do start looking at our priorities, those are the 3 items that I will be asking you to focus on, and probably bring in the first draft with those in there, and then obviously the board will make a decision on what they want to do.
Thank you for including those.
You're welcome.
As you went through it, it sounded like an elaboration on some of the priorities that we worked on this time last year. And having a year's experience with that, you've now made it clearer and more focused. And I liked hearing how you laid that out.
And I lost where we were. Is that the end of my report?
I don't know.
I don't know, is there anything
There's
else?
no content.
No, I think I'm done. I think I was answering
Trustee
questions.
advisory committees.
Although I think we gave our reports as
You jumped
he's giving
in,
his
yeah.
report, so.
What's next on the agenda is the trustee and advisory committee reports. And since we haven't had advisory committees meeting, it would come down just to any report that any trustee wants to make that you haven't made already. So, Ms. Felice.
Thank you. I'll just make a quick comment that I'm very glad to be back. And I want to thank the community for the overwhelming support they gave the budget, as well as the support they gave to Gina and myself. We look forward to these challenging times to work together, and I look forward to working together with all of you. And I just want to echo the sentiments on the graduation. It really was spectacular under the trying circumstances. And I agree with Gina that it was wonderful to be up and to watch the parade. So that the 2 of us have that aspect to share with all of you in going forward to decide what happens for next year. Thank you.
Ms. Ancona?
I agree with everything Cheryl said. I think everybody, the voters, the budget is going to be an important one this year, and I look forward to working with all of you this year. And I know we have challenges, and COVID is going to be hard, but I just hope we do what's in the best interest of the kids and the faculty. Thank you.
Mr. Trent? Ms. Aruda, Mr. Parker, Mr. Piccini?
Nope.
No? Okay, then we will move on.
Okay, we'll move on to item for discussion number 1, which is the school calendar revision. And I first want to apologize for former board members, because we looked at this calendar many times last school year. But I promise that this is the last school year. So the first item is discussion and action of the revision for the 2021 school calendar. As the board's aware, through recent negotiations with our Teachers Association, we were able to add an evening parent-teacher conference. So that is all that you are looking at right now to make a change. There's actually no change in the calendar. It's just an addition of the parent-teacher conference. And if you take a look at the consolidated calendar, if you open it up, you'll notice it a little bit, looks a little different, and that's because we changed the color of the board meetings to yellow. We put the advisory committee meetings on there, so everything's in one place, and the conferences are below. And those parent-teacher evening conferences were April, end of the year that they were in. So I offer that for the board's discussion and action.
All right. Does anybody have any questions about the calendar? It's been refined now. And as we know, in cases of emergency, adjustments can be made throughout the year. So do you want a motion to approve
Yes,
this
yes,
so
this
that
is
you
an
can
action.
get it all printed up?
Mhm.
All right, Ms. Aruda made the motion, a second by Ms. Ancona. No more discussion or questions, I don't think. Okay, all in favor of approving the calendar? It's unanimously approved, thank you.
Okay, the second item for discussion is the determination of trustee membership on each of our 4 board advisory committees. Each board member will choose 1 or 2 committees to sit on, with committee membership not to exceed 3 trustees, so we don't achieve quorum. The board president serves as exec officio on all committees with all voting rights. Committees will meet bi-monthly. As you may recall, we started last school year quarterly and increased it to bi-monthly, and those meetings will begin in August. And these committees may, of course, establish subcommittees below them for the purpose of reviewing and analyzing items in more detail. So I've listed the 2021 school year committee meeting dates on board docs, along with the trustee membership from last school year. And this is simply a discussion item, and you all can pick where you'd like to be, and then we will place you there. I don't know if you want me to mention where former trustees were, but there's vacancies all over, it looks like.
Maybe it'll be easier if we just go around, starting with existing trustees and their committee membership. I think, for example, Ms. Aruda, you're on teaching and learning.
I'd like
I'm
to
assuming
stay.
you'd like to continue there.
Yes, I'd like to stay there.
Do you have a second committee that you're interested in?
I will sit on another one if I'm needed on another one, but I'm definitely would like to stay on
Okay.
teaching and learning.
Well,
And
let's,
that's why, yeah.
okay. Mr. Parker,
I'd like to stay where I am as well.
I think that was finance and facilities.
Is that what this?
Yes.
So,
Mr. Pacini?
I'd like to stay on finances facilities. I'd also like to be on health and safety.
Okay. Mr. Trent?
I'll understand why.
Okay, and you'll stay? All right, so, preference,
I'd like to be on the health and safety.
okay, I think I've heard 2. You're not on health and safety,
Yeah.
are you?
I have 2 on health and safety. I'm sorry, I stopped with Cameron.
Oh,
So I
Okay,
have 2 there.
all right,
Okay,
so
so-
Strategic plan.
3 would
I'll
be,
strategic planning then.
well, no, you can still be
Oh,
on.
I can be on
So
that?
we
It's
can go up to
okay.
3.
Oh, okay, then I'd like to be on that.
Health and
Yes.
safety,
Health and safety.
and Ms. Felice?
I'd like strategic planning, just a note, I was the community member of strategic planning, so we'll need to
You'll have to
replace
Right,
me there. And finance and facilities, if that is still open.
we had 2 other finance and facilities, I believe, Mr. Parker and Mr. Pacini. You're not financing?
No,
No,
but
okay,
I-
so
No,
then
That's,
we,
that's 3. You want me to recap? This
Yes,
This
please.
is absent you.
right,
Strategic planning, Mr. Trent, Ms. Felice. T&L is Ms. Aruda. Health and safety, Mr. Pacini, Mr. Trent, and Ms. Ancona. And finance and facility, Mr. Parker, Mr. Pacini, and Ms. Felice.
all right, so,
So there's 1 on T&L, 2 on strategic planning, and 3 on the 2 others.
I'll go to T&L, I can be flexible. And this way, the finance and facility won't have 3, so that when you're there, we don't have to worry about a quorum.
but I thought you were talking about strategic planning?
I'd like to stay on strategic
Well, do you
planning.
want to be on 2 committees?
Yeah, I had suggested two, finance and facilities as well. But
And
if there's
strategic
too
planning.
many there, then I'll just go to teaching and learning. Whichever.
Maybe, how about if you do both strategic planning and teaching and learning?
Certainly.
That'll even it out a little bit
Yeah.
more?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
And you'll have company, Miss Aruda?
Sure.
So,
And I'm taking you off of finance and facility? And then are you just going, that left two everywhere, oh, no, everywhere but health and safety?
and we'd have three, I think.
There's three there. So I'm
Right.
just thinking about you, I know you can go on all of them, I didn't know
I
if you
had
wanted
been,
to.
this year I went to all of them, and it is, it's a lot of meetings to go to. So I'm hoping that in the upcoming year, maybe people's schedules will permit them to go on a regular basis and then come back and share with us.
And I would hope too, Madam President, that if we can't be at a meeting, that we contact the other board member to make sure they're gonna be there. I just think it sends a bad message when no board member shows up at the advisory meetings.
I know with teaching and learning, I don't know about the others, but there's always an email that goes out. And if
Yeah,
a
they
board
all
member
do.
can't make it, it's always a reply all. That's just
Good.
always been, I've been on for over 5 years, and that's kind of just been common practice, any member. So I don't know if the other committees do that as well, but it's just been good practice because we pretty much know who's
Could,
going to be
a
attending.
question for the superintendent, could we standardize the minutes of the advisory committees? Not all of them take attendance or display the attendance
Well-
in the same way?
I had the same point as Cheryl, actually. I think
I
they're
think-
made differently, all of them.
Yeah, because we're all doing things differently, right? So I'm doing mine in Evernote, they're doing theirs somewhere else, I'm doing mine while I'm sitting there.
Not all of them list who was in attendance. Not every meeting is consistent. If we could just standardize those
I
reports
thought we
in
did,
some
but
manner.
yes, we
Well,
can.
sometimes they just send an email, we didn't really discuss anything that is different from, or there's no update, is what sometimes they'll say. So there's not really a format.
Yeah, I will look at
Thank you.
making some format changes and attendance.
To
Okay,
that
but-
note, I know that teaching and learning, although it will be a little different, having been on the committee for several years, it had always been a very collaborative effort, and there was often subcommittees. Under the previous chair, it was a lot of PowerPoints and shows, and it really was not a collaboration as much as I would have liked it to be. So moving forward, I would definitely like to see more collaboration on that particular committee the way that it used to be. I think we've spoken about this before, but I just want to reiterate it.
John, I can make a correction. It is the subcommittee, like Melissa said, specifically the air quality
Oh,
subcommittee.
there's no minutes there.
They're those ones I was referring to, where those minutes aren't.
Okay,
aren't
yeah, the
consistent. I'm sorry.
subcommittees aren't doing the minutes.
Okay.
But any report out should be included in the advisory minutes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Madam President, do you want to put yourself on a specific one, or do you want to just,
I
Bounce. 'Cause
would, I would like to float.
I want you to stay on the strategic planning.
You want me to stay on that one?
No pressure.
Your wish will be my command. Okay, so,
then you can
strategic
float.
planning, we have Ms. Felice and
And Mr. Trent,
Mr.
yourself.
Trent and me. So numbers, we're fine on that, and,
Yeah, so we
Yes,
got,
I
now
will
we have
stay
three
on-
everywhere except for
okay.
Tina. All right, thank you. Now, the next item for discussion is the Board Audit Committee membership. So for the board's information, all schools are required to have an audit committee, which must consist of at least 3 members who are not employees of the district. When considering school audit committee membership, the board has 3 options. Sometimes the entire board serves as the audit committee. Sometimes a subcommittee of the board, or an advisory committee that may include or be composed entirely of persons other than the board, if they're, in their opinion, such membership is advisable for auditing expertise. And that's basically what we are doing currently. Previous audit committee membership was a combination of community members and board trustees, and I offer this for the board's discussion in terms of how they may want the audit committee to look moving forward. We don't have a committee in place at this point, but certainly once we know how the board may like to have that committee be made up, we can move forward with that.
Well, of everybody around the table, I'm the only one who attended any of those meetings. And so the experience this year has given me my own opinion about some changes that I think we should make. And it's in combination also with some of the different financial issues that we had to deal with throughout the year with the audit that was related particularly to the 8th grade trips, and the fact that legally we've got as a board 2 main priorities and requirements, and one is the students and the other is the taxpayer money. And I think that it would be to the board's benefit to have a little tighter connection with the audit committee, and maybe it's time to move to have either the entire board be the audit committee, because we do have the internal auditors, the external auditors who give the review and the advice, and also our assistant superintendent for business who works with that committee to give advice, and either the whole board can do it or some subset of the board. And so I would suggest that that might be something we want to look at in terms of, trying to include other people. We don't need auditors because we have the paid auditors. What we need are people who have the interest of the taxpayer at heart, and that buck really stops with us. So that's why I would be making that recommendation. But I thought that tonight, open the floor for discussion. People can think about it. We'll come back at perhaps the next meeting or even the one after, and then determine which way we want to go on this. Yes.
Just a comment on that. In the past, many years ago, the board was criticized for not having the general public, taxpayer stakeholders involved in the budgeting process. So it was encouraged to have this committee. I think we even had a budget advisory committee, but that ended up kind of being a disaster at the time. So I would be mindful as we move forward and make a decision on this committee that we have something other than budget hearings, because we know we don't get many people for budget hearings to participate in the public budget hearings. We do need, I don't want to be accused of lack of transparency like is everybody's favorite target. So that's something to consider when thinking about this.
I think that's...
And I don't necessarily disagree with you.
Right.
But for the optics of it.
No, I understand, but I'm kind of visualizing there's a difference between the audit committee and the budget advisory committee.
Agreed.
And we have not had a budget advisory committee, I don't know, for some number of years. But I think that your point's very well taken, that might be a committee that we would like to have.
Correct.
And get community involvement there, so that, I think that would be very helpful. So let's hold the budget advisory committee till the end
But
of this
just
discussion.
the point though, I just wanted to clarify too, is that it's the budget advisory committee, audit committee are 2 completely separate things, right? So everybody needs to understand, for some new board members, it's different, right? The audit's about what we're spending, budget's about how we're developing what we're gonna spend. So past allegations and suspicions have been about how the district spends money, so I would be careful of the optics there. Maybe, and I don't know, I haven't seen the membership. I know for many years, the membership from the public in that committee hasn't changed. I don't know if it's the same members now or not. Maybe that's an issue. Maybe it's time to solicit new membership from the community. Maybe that's an idea. I don't know. So.
It was comment over here. Okay, Ms. Felice?
Thank you.
What is the committee classified as now? Is it a subcommittee of the board? Is it?
No, it is one of the required committees the board must have.
No, I understand, but for the,
Oh, no, right now it's a combination.
it's a combination,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's two,
So-
well, last year we had 2 trustees and 3 community members.
Okay.
But it's not a subcommittee, I think is what the question is.
No.
It's a
No,
separate
it's a
committee.
Subcommittee
standalone
of the
committee.
board.
Right.
Okay. So if we do a subcommittee of the board, we can put community members on it, yes?
No, a subcommittee of the board would
Be
just
just board members?
be board members
That's what I need to
only.
clarify.
So
Okay.
not, so it could be, less than 7 of you. This would
Okay.
be the subcommittee.
All right, no, just question for clarity.
Do we
And
know
then-
how long these people, I'm sorry.
That's okay. The experience, thank you for sharing your experience with with what happened in the last year. And my experience in the 3 years prior was the people who were assigned to the committee from the board, we always had at least one, and they weren't readily attended. And so we made it a priority in the board to insist that who's ever going to be appointed show up, and then the board president would always try and make an appearance as well. So again, I'm going to harp on, because it happens to be a pet peeve of mine, that if you're on a committee, if you're on an advisory board, that attendance is important. So I'm leaning towards now a combination subcommittee of the board, more members of the board, but also members of the community as well. I don't know where that fits.
I think what you're saying would be to have the same type of structure,
Mhm.
but to have perhaps more board members on it. Have community membership and board members
And the board members who are
going to actually go.
who are going to participate, yes. So this is just for discussion today?
Tonight, right.
Okay, all right.
So it gives everybody a chance to think about it.
Do we know how long these people that are serving on this advisory committee have been on?
More than 10 years.
Oh, so it's in the same committee with no changes?
As long as
So-
I've been here. I know.
Okay, so that might,
You know, that's a great point that Ms. Ancona just raised. Maybe we can get a little background of who's been on, like their resume. Where did they come from? What's their community involvement? What's their professional background? Because that's something that wasn't made available in the past. We didn't ask for it either. I don't want to say that it was kept from us. It wasn't. But it's something that we didn't look at. So maybe now's the time to look.
Is there a list of the current committee members? It's not a board docs, right? I don't see it.
No, it's not.
Has it changed?
No.
It's been the same forever. I know
It's
there's
been
an
the
accountant
same.
on there, a couple business
It's
people.
been the
How many
same since I've been here.
And I know that
Yeah.
one thing that keeps popping up from the auditors who are advising us
Okay.
and doing the work is having periodic changes of auditors. And the reason is because different auditing firms, they'll have a different set of eyes.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll see something that somebody overlooked, even if it wasn't a deliberate mistake, but something that could be done better. And I think that's beneficial. But that applies also to membership, that having extra sets of eyes to look at things, and just because things have been done one way in the past doesn't mean they should continue to do the same going forward. So it's just out there for discussion, using our best judgment. I'm raising it because of concern of what we went through this year with regard to what the audit did turn up, which was distressing. And, how we can do things better internally, and just to keep better eyes on things, better management. Because that's what falls on our desk.
It was this committee that discovered what happened with the trips.
Yes,
Well,
and
so the committee looks at, with administration's recommendation, items to look at.
They didn't discover it.
to focus
like
on.
Right.
And that was an item that administration recommended to look at, so the auditor came in, and then obviously that report went to the audit committee.
And for some time ago, when I was on the audit committee, it was asked, and I do believe, because I believe it was me that asked it, to have all student extracurricular activities, any fundraising efforts, all reviewed by the audit committee. Because it's always been, anytime money changes hands, there's always suspicions, regardless of whether it's valid or not. But there were, right, I think it was the board that asked to look specifically into trips.
Well,
But
it just
started with-
kept coming up, so.
I'm sorry, no, it was the board that asked to look at all the student, because we changed the policies on how the money was handled for all extracurricular activities. Clubs, everything, booster clubs, fundraising efforts, everything. So that's where, and trips fell into that, so that's where it came from the board.
But in combination with what you said, apparently there are categories where it's recommended, I believe, by the commissioner of the state education department, that on a periodic basis, you do different categories of audits. And, like 1 year it would be the extracurricular funds, another year it might be the reserve funds for the workers' comp and
I don't think
unemployment
that's not
insurance.
for our auditors, though, that's when the state does their audit, right?
No, they
They
have
dictate on the
categories.
They have like
Okay.
a calendar,
Got it.
every few years you do a certain category.
I remember that.
So, next meeting, bring it back?
Bring it back, please.
Bottles of water at the end of this clock.
I don't know.
What? There, I'll get it.
Does anybody want mine?
It's fine, I'll get one right here.
Mr. Dennis, can you also include the exact function of this committee? Because
Second one, and then let me get one as well, Chris, please.
I also was, because we requested the background, I'm going to ask for those that wish to continue to give me something with regard to the background report, right?
If they wish to
Yeah.
continue. And then again, depending upon what the board decides to do with regard to composition, yeah.
And,
That was a bigger disruption than I thought, did you? Yeah. Sorry. I really try to do that very stealthily.
Anybody else want water while Mr. Pacini is getting?
I would like another one, thank you.
that a
Could
yes
you
for
get
everyone?
one for
Clearly,
Karen?
we are out
Cheryl?
of practice.
I'll take it.
Yeah, fast forward.
I got long arms.
We have been spoiled in Zoom meetings,
Yeah, you can't,
now we're just making a ruckus.
You need one? Somebody needs one?
No, just, I'll wait for you to close it, I'll let you go back.
I gave
You want
mine.
it? Huh?
I gave mine away.
Oh, jeez. Killing me.
You'll be there all night, Chris.
Okay, I
This is
think.
playing out great on YouTube, I'm sure.
We're now doing the school
Yes,
liaisons,
yes.
that one's fun.
Yes, the next item for discussion is determination of our school liaisons. Each school has one trustee who serves as a liaison between the school PTA and the board. Listed in board docs are each of our schools along with who served which school last school year. So we need to determine who might want to serve which school this school.
Let me start then, Ms. Aruda. Do you have a preference?
I'll stay with Frank Pete.
Mr. Parker?
Middle school?
Yes.
High school.
Hold on,
High
hold
school.
on. You guys are going too quick.
Mr. Trent?
I would like, Kramer Street. That's what, Mr. Nix had.
Okay.
So I put that on.
Mm-hmm.
Took that on.
Ms. Ancona?
I would prefer the high school just because my son's there. And I heard that there's a precedent for having 2 liaisons at a school. So I would like that if possible.
Well, there's 7 of us and 7 school buildings.
We had more when we had, I mean, it's up to the
We had
board,
9.
But when we had 9 members, we did allow different numbers.
May I speak to that? But even when we went to 7, we had 2.
As soon as we
South
hit
Haven was
South
over.
Haven and we had equal, we stopped.
Oh, so this year I
Yeah, so
wasn't
now
on
we have
board.
7 schools and 7 members. Not, listen,
There's no
work does
prohibition
whatever they
against
want.
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just telling you how the history works.
Okay,
There's
so-
not,
so-
but I don't want to have a school be
Well,
short.
what if I
understand.
did 2? Would that be okay with anybody?
You got time in your schedule and
Well-
all of that?
I'll make time if I can be in
All
high
right,
school.
so you want high school,
And I guess South Haven.
okay. All right, Ms. Felice?
Well, I was considering the early childhood center as
you
well.
want that.
But I was gonna say, if you want to do 2, then I'll just share that one with
Okay.
you.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna be
It
out,
still
we're
needs
gonna
to
be
be-
We're
shy
gonna be
then.
short, we need
With
somebody.
Yeah, we
in
have
Vern
Brookhaven
Kritz.
and Vern Kritz.
Then I'll do.
Oh, we
Vern
need
Kritz as
Mrs.
well. I can
You'll
do,
do Vern
Bobby.
Kritz,
I can do 2.
and I did Brookhaven this year and I enjoyed it, so.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we need, so we're gonna do 2 at South Haven and the high school?
And then 1 at Vern Kritz.
All right, who's gonna do Vern Kritz?
I will.
Ms. Felice?
Okay, and, Ms. Ancona and Ms. Felice are going to do South Haven.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, where did Mr. Trent?
Trent?
Kramer Street.
Landed at
Oh,
Kramer.
Kramer, okay.
What do they call it? Kramer Kingdom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Kramer Kingdom.
Just want to go find that tile again. It took us 45
I'm
minutes.
searching.
We found it.
Yes, we did.
We didn't
That
find
wasn't-
it.
I know, I thought we
That
did.
wasn't it.
Oh. Well, we know what we need to do this August.
When we do our walk.
Our next item is the selection and appointment of a board trustee to serve as representative to the New York State Countywide Shared Service Initiative, called Suffolk Share. Suffolk
How often
Share.
has that committee been meeting?
Mr. Trent, how often did that meet?
We only met once.
Yeah, I can't imagine they did anything.
I know they met at Sable Golf Club or something.
I went to that's the last meeting I went to. We
Well-
had all good intentions in the beginning, but we do share services, do we not?
Yeah, at times, you know, listen, I think it pays to appoint somebody, so in the event that we do use or want to enter into agreement that they're utilizing, it's worth it. And if it's so infrequent that they meet, what's the big deal? Especially if Mr. Trent wants to continue his membership.
Well, I don't mind it.
You want to do that?
We only met for a vote and it was free food, so.
Okay.
Knock on wood now.
Okay. So we'll have
That's
Mr.
an
Trent.
action, that is an action item.
So we need a motion then
Yes.
to approve Mr. Trent representing us on this shared service initiative.
I'll make that motion to appoint
Ms.
Mr.
Felice made the motion, we have a second by Ms. Ancona, all in favor. It's 6 in favor and 1 member is absent right now, but, so that's approved.
Okay, and our final item for discussion, at least, is consideration of conducting a board retreat for our new board. Last year, the board participated in a one-day retreat in mid-August, which was facilitated by the New York State School Boards Association facilitator. And I believe we held that at Postmore Foundation. And in my view, it was very successful. And as I recall, the reviews that the board afterwards, I think the board felt it was a beneficial time. So for our planning purposes, I need some guidance as to whether or not this board wants to do a retreat, and if so, 1 day, 2 day, mini retreat. What's your pleasure?
Okay, for those of us that participated, I think that the part day on a Saturday seemed to be most appealing. Certainly not 2 days.
What did we ended, does anyone remember? Was it 1 or 3?
It was early afternoon. I think we even ended earlier than it was
I
planned.
think it was
for.
scheduled for 3, but we ended probably around 2-ish or so.
It was
So,
very interesting.
Yeah. I like that, the conversation that we had there.
so my preference is, if we did it again, to do it like on a half day, or, and I thought the location worked out very comfortably for everybody.
It was definitely a nice day, without a shadow of a doubt. I think it's very important. I like the idea of an evening, weekday evening type of thing. I know that the weekends can be challenging. I think our last one we did in August, if I remember correct. Did we do August?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just opening that up for discussion, compared to a weekend to an evening may work better, so
I
that
would
we can
prefer
all
an
be.
evening,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can possibly could work with all of us.
That could work.
You
Have
think
like
it's
a
good?
3-hour mini
Yeah.
retreat.
Yeah, mini retreat, and then, I mean, I think we could start off that way, and then if we have to add more later on, couldn't we do
One
that?
year, I think that's what we did.
We did mini retreats.
We did.
We did,
Yeah.
we did like
Mini
one,
retreat.
yeah, we did like one.
I feel like that might be, because August seems now, a year later, it seems so long ago, so to do something maybe once or twice, where we do these mini retreats might be something better. That's just my thought.
I think that's actually a good point. And one of the reasons that I think we received it quite well last year, there were 4 new members, which was, well, that tired word of unprecedented, but it really was a big difference. This year, we have technically 2 new members, but one is a repeating member, having taken a break. So I think maybe the mini retreat might be a good solution here.
I'm good with
We'll
that.
start with 1.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would
I'm
start with
I'm
one at this
thinking
point.
I survey you all on possible evening dates and
If you're
try.
looking at August, remember you have the advisory committees that month and 2 board meetings.
Mm.
So you're knocking out 6 days.
I don't think we have to start in August. I mean,
You
I
don't
think
have
we could start, I do think that we're gonna have our work cut up for us for the next 2 months. So ideally, I would say later September. That would be my thought.
That might not be a bad idea because I think that the new trustee training, you're doing it virtually and it's 3 days. You've got a choice of 3 days, I think, in July or 3 days in August.
Yeah.
And I actually think it would be good if you took that before we did the retreat.
I'm signed up for July, so.
You signed up to do it in July?
Yeah, I prefer July.
Yeah. So,
I found it to be repetitive. For the simple fact of, we had just taken the new board, and then the gentleman that came in, I did find some of the information to be repetitive. Not that it wasn't informative, but it was fresh in our minds, and that's why I'm thinking maybe a little bit.
I think that we might be able to do a better job of letting the facilitator know what it is we need to have done.
Possible.
May I ask a question of Ms. Aruda?
Mhm.
Did you take the online class last year or in person?
In person.
Okay.
In person, that's why we found it, and I know Ann and I had both spoke after, we found some of the information to be repetitive. Not that it was a bad thing, it just, again, maybe we should have communicated a little bit more of what we needed at that
What
moment.
did we know back then?
We didn't, we were brand new. And here we are, a year older and
Right.
You're
wiser.
older.
So if y'all are gonna do your training in July, and as you've pointed out, starting in with meetings already in August, maybe, would there be an evening in September? Where,
It's gotta be late September.
Late
Early
Sep-
September with school openings busy.
no,
and we-
absolutely,
Yes.
but
I mean,
later.
honestly, I would say
later-
Right, that's what we're
I would say early October for me. September is a very, very difficult month. But
So, I think last year it worked pretty well, Dr. Chiani, when you just let us know blocks of time and when we were available, and then we chose a time when we all were.
I'll look at the calendar, and do you want to have School Board Association come again?
What are other options?
Well, you'd have to get someone that, does this kind of thing.
Okay, so school board
I
association.
mean, I would suggest School Board Association, provided they do a 3-hour block, and I think they will, because they're local, they're local folks usually.
Okay.
Um,
So why don't we look late September into early October,
I'll
Right.
block
and then
some dates out.
block out some dates, and then we can figure out what works best for us.
Send something to you all to figure out, and we'll see if National School Boards Association.
And I think since it's in the evening, and I believe that for the
Dinner,
people- Yeah,
absolutely.
I believe 5:30 seems to be the earliest, once you start school again, Ms. Aruda, would 5:30 be the early?
Should be.
That would work. Mr.
I
Trent,
think
5:30?
who's getting out of work, right? That you-
And-
Yeah, 5:30 is good. School's starting, so now we have football games, hopefully have football games and stuff like that. But yeah, 5:30 is good for me. It's
all right,
normally a
so
good time.
if we did it, say, 3 hours, 5:30 to 8:30, and, let the facilitator can run the program.
Well, they generally do the survey, right? We'll do that
Right.
again.
That's
That
right.
way they'll feel the needs of the board and
Yes.
they'll adjust it. Or she.
I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
Okay.
thinking in terms of use of time, that we
Right.
would not take a break during the 5:30 to, say, 8:30, if we have 3 hours.
A 10-minute break wouldn't hurt any of us.
No, I'm not,
Smoke.
but I mean, a dinner break. I'm not talking about a little
We
break.
could
like-
eat, can we?
We can
Yeah,
eat while
we
we
can eat while we work.
synergize.
Okay. Enough guidance on that?
I have enough guidance, Madam
Okay.
President, I do. Okay, so we move on to curriculum consent items. And administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in Schedule G1 and G2.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve curriculum items G1 and G2? Mr. Trent, a second. Ms. Belize, questions or discussion? All in favor? It's unanimously consented.
And we move to personnel. Administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in Schedule H1 through H8.
H 1.1 through H 1.3?
8.
Okay, this didn't come through H1 through H8. Okay, so, is there a motion to approve items H1 through H8?
So moved.
Mr. Parker, a second by Mr. Trent. Questions or discussion? Mr. Root?
Yes, can, Dr. Gianni, can you just clarify on H1, 1.2?
Point 2, let me open that.
Actually, 2 questions. This-
It's guidance.
Yeah.
Okay, so we agreed to, at least my recommendation when we first appointed was to give leave for that position
Okay.
annually.
Okay.
And we also appoint someone annually for a leave replacement position.
Okay, I just wanted to, okay. And the second question was on H2. We have 3 people that we are recalling back. How many more people do we have on our list that?
I can't tell you off the top of my head. I can get.
Get the information, please?
So, how many others are still on the recall list?
Yes.
Yes. Others on recall list.
have approvals for this motion? All in favor? Again, it's unanimously approved.
Thank you. And moving to business, administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I-1 through I-23.
Do I have a motion to approve I-1 through I-23?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Felice, and a second by Ms. Ancona.
Discussion?
I have
Any discussion or questions?
I have a quick question. Dr. Johnny, in regards to the wrestling mats that are being thrown away, I think that is, that's I-15. It says that they are over 30 years old. Have there been in place any standards to keeping the wrestling mats? Because I know that they can keep bacteria or things that are harmful to the body. Do we recycle them? Are we going to recycle them every?
No, so they would be tossed unless someone bid on them. Some items of value we'll put out for notice and see if we can get money for them. That may be true with this item, and if not, they will be tossed.
Well, I guess my question is, 30 years is a long time to have wrestling mats, something that,
Yeah, but this type of mat is something that is reconditionable, and generally, depending upon the care of a mat, it can last anywhere from 5 to 10 years.
okay.
This mat has been reconditioned, but there's only so many times you can do it, and then it starts to get hard, and that's why we're getting rid of it. It's not a bacteria issue. Believe it or not, wrestling's way ahead of the game when it comes to communicable diseases and the cleaning standards and protocols. I mean, if you ever watch a wrestling match, you'll see them cleaning between matches, time for blood and everything. But there is strict protocols with regard to cleaning wrestling mats and wrestling rings, etc.
I have a question also on item number 4, the budget transfer for postage. Did that have anything to do with the election, the budget election, the budget vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And then one final question, please. On the contracts that we're signing, we brought it up a little bit earlier in the meeting. These are contracts that are absolutely necessary. We're keeping in mind that we don't really know what September looks like yet.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned earlier, and I don't remember if it was public, it may have been before, but it's certainly for the public, we did pull the food service contract at that time because we don't know what we might look like.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or discussion here? So, ready to vote to approve these items? All in favor? It's unanimously approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that is all I have for you this evening, Mr. President.
Let's see, we're down now to
Closing.
closing remarks. Well, this was a very efficient reorg meeting and business meeting. That'll be part of my closing remark. Thank you all for doing your homework and looking at all the papers ahead of time. It's a lot of reading. Some meetings there won't be this much, but it's important to do it so that we know what questions to raise. And I'm going to go around the table for closing remarks and hold my real closing remarks. So, Ms. Aruda, you want to start?
Nothing really for this week.
No?
Nothing.
Not really? Okay, Mr. Trent?
I would like to continue to the tradition. I would like to thank the South Country Education Foundation for the donation of gift cards to our high school graduates. And I would also like to give a special thanks to the volunteers who gave their time to help our food outreach to our community members. Their time is definitely appreciated. And I would also like to welcome our new trustee and our returning trustee. It was great to have them on board.
And just so the board knows, I personally thank the volunteers, both at the back of the meeting, sent the letter on behalf of the board for thanks. They definitely went above and beyond, and joyfully. So.
Okay. Could I jump back to Ms. Aruda?
Yes,
who
and
thought
I
of something?
apologize, you sparked my memory that I did want to mention and thank everyone, and actually being part of it, it was great, it was an enjoyable experience for everyone, would come in the mornings with their smiles and everything else, and it just became part of our day, whether we were doing it every day or once a week. It was a very enjoyable experience to do that. So thank you to everyone that did volunteer. Thank you to our food servers, because without them, that we couldn't have done them, and we kept coming earlier and earlier each time, and all of a sudden we're there at like 7:30 and they had everything all ready for us, and they were great. They really, really were, and thank you, Cameron, for reminding me of that.
Yeah, we delivered a lot.
Yes.
A lot of meals. We had, I think we had a dozen folks that were just on deliveries.
We were delivering, you would have to ask Mr. Sora, and I have to definitely give him a big shout out, because he was the MapQuest guy. He had everything all set up for everyone, sent it over to Sarah, knew exactly where your deliveries were going, because he was really kind of taking care of all that, and even if, there was a new one, I could call him right away, and, no, we had a lot. We had, oh gosh, I don't even know the number. He would know the number off the top.
I know, I've seen it, I just knew it was awful lot.
It was a lot, and it was wonderful. Yeah.
And while you mention it, kudos to Sarah.
Yes.
Because she was the hub of the whole thing, and she was doing it from home.
Yeah.
So, it was very much team-oriented and team implemented, so.
Syncona.
Again, Christine did a great job at the budget, and thank you again. And thanks for being so welcoming, and thanks, Cameron. We look forward to everything. That's it.
Agreed. I wanted to give Christine a proper acknowledgement on the trying circumstances of the budget vote, counting every single vote by hand. It was really quite an effort, and thank you for making the accommodation so that Gina and I could witness the vote. You did a wonderful job. I want to congratulate both Trent and Ian on your respective positions, and I look forward to good things for the coming year, considering all the trying circumstances that we have. But I think, like we've already spoken about the graduation and how well that went off, this community comes together when it needs to come to, when it needs to most. So looking forward to a good year.
And my comments would be to thank everybody at this table for everything that they've done and all their interest, and how I'm looking forward to working with everybody in the upcoming year. And it will be very interesting, I think, with all the changes that will have to be implemented. For the two of you who weren't here with us from March through June, there were times where directions were coming from the governor and the commissioner of education and the county executive, and they weren't necessarily consistent with each other. And every time there was a way forward crafted by our administration, it would have to be changed. It was literally on a day-to-day basis, if not on an hour-to-hour basis, and it's something you can't describe it to people who didn't actually live through it. But I think that we're fortunate to have had our administration, and as you pointed out, having the team spirit all the way through staff at all the different schools, all the different job descriptions, everybody pitching in to make sure that it worked. And you can see the result of all the labor with regard to the way the graduation ceremony was received, and that's just an example. So I'm expecting we're going to see more things like that over the year, and So thank you to administration for all the work, throughout this and through the summer. Keep us posted on reopening ideas. And also our district clerk who held it all together in spite of the odds. Who would have thought you would be sending out absentee ballots to every single registered voter in the district? But maybe you can give lessons to some of the other states and their absentee ballot issues.
Well, and also to our tech department that's allowed us to actually meet virtually and taking care of all the hiccups virtually so that we are able to do that. Because I know for many of us, it was something brand new.
It definitely was.
Thank
And
you.
I can personally speak to that, and having our tech professional be willing to walk me through what needed to be done, I really appreciated that. So,
Before you close, Sarah texted me 77 deliveries in district and 9 out of district. A little more than about a dozen. But
okay. All right, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Well, we know who's
Oh,
doing
Mr.
that.
Trent, and we need a second on that. Ms. Aruda. All in favor? It's unanimously consented. Thanks to everybody. We'll see you.